And let us prepare now in body, in mind, and in spirit for our service this morning. You have a body and you have a mind, and they are instruments given to you to journey through this world. Who you are has authority over your mind and your body. To experience healing, you rise in consciousness above the influence of word and thought to communion with spirit itself. When a life issue presents its position to you, do not surrender to empowering it by attempting to know the truth about the problem. It's imperative to realize that there is no truth about the challenge. There is only truth about the truth. Let's take these words into our minds and hearts and contemplate them for a few moments. And what is the truth that we know as we come together this morning? That truth about a community of love, a place of sharing, a place where we know peace, where we recognize more and more of the truth about ourselves, about who we really are, about the truth of the magnificence of life, the abundance, the beauty, the wholeness of it. And how wonderful it is to have this place, this time together, where we open ourselves to be more, ever more aware of the truth that we all live, that we are one. And for this I simply say thank you, God. And so it is.
So it is.
Amen.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Before I talk with you today, we have someone here from our core council. She's the coordinator of our Vision Corps, and she's going to give you a little report. And we're taking it out of order because she has to count and close today, so she's a very busy lady. If I can find her. Ann, where are you?
Right here.
Oh, there you are. You're hiding in the corner. This is Ann Calkins. She is on our core council and our Vision Corps coordinator. Oh, hello.
I'm sure some of you have read Conversations with God by Neil Donald Walsh. Yes? Okay. For those of you who haven't, he started asking questions of God and then writing down the answers, and he turned these into a book, actually a trilogy. And basically, he believes that God is trying to make contact with us all the time, all day long, everywhere, because basically we're not paying attention. And he thinks that God tries to make contact with us through other people, through the song on the radio that we hear, through a book or a magazine article or whatever, and it's up to us to listen. So basically, if you're listening, then you're visioning. And so what we do is we try to listen with an open mind and I kind of like what Reverend Michael Beckwith says about it. He says, visioning is catching the ideas of God. So what we do in Vision Corps is we do a short little meditation to get everybody kind of prepared for it. And then I ask questions of the group, such as what is the highest vision for our center, or for our youth program, or for the Corps Council, or our animal ministry. We just take one idea at a time and go with it. And then I ask, what do we need to embrace, or what do we need to release for the vision to manifest? And between each question, we all take a few minutes to just write down whatever comes into our mind. And at the end, we just share our answers. So actually, lately, we've been visioning about our new church home, and we've been getting quite a few interesting answers about that. But we get usually a lot of things that are similar. Sometimes our responses kind of fit together like pieces of a puzzle. Sometimes they're very positive. Other times they can be kind of powerful or a little bit mysterious, or sometimes just kind of wacky. So you just never know.
Pizza.
Okay, yeah, wacky is me. That is true.
That's our highest vision for our community. Pizza.
Well, I was a little hungry, you know. So anyway, if all of this sounds appealing to you and you think you might want to join us, come see me afterwards. It's not a big time commitment. It's just an hour a month. Just we meet from 6 to 7 on the second Wednesday of the month. So we'd like to have you. We really could use your unique perspective. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Anne. She sometimes gets pizza, but sometimes she gets amazing stuff. We all do. And the way it all comes together, it's kind of like a mosaic, you know. You just wait for the pieces to make a picture, and then you have a picture, and the picture is, you know, a big picture and a beautiful one. And we try to, then the Corps Council's job is to try and put legs under it, as it were, to try and make it, figure out how it's going to come to fruition through each one of us. So thank you, Anne, for your service and for that report. Oh, so thank you for that music this morning, too. That was wonderful. Ernest Holmes said, our founder, Ernest Holmes, said that the essence of all healing is the perception of wholeness. The essence of all healing is the perception that we are one with the creative impulse of the universe. When I say healing, I don't just mean physical healing, because healing for me means whatever area of your life isn't going the way you want it to go. If it's your money or your employment or your relationships or your health or whatever, if it's not going the way your deep self wants it to go, there's some healing work to be done there. So the essence of that healing is a perception that we are one with each other and with the universe. And our reading today gives us a little roadmap to that recognition of wholeness. But it's another one of those simple but difficult ideas, right? Simple but harder to live, I guess. To experience healing, you rise in consciousness above the influence of word and thought to communion with spirit itself. How do we do that? How do we rise in consciousness? And how do we remember that there is only truth about the capital T truth, and the rest of it is stuff we make up? It's perception, it's misperception, it's misconception, it's misunderstanding. Ernest Holmes would also say that once we realize that deep inner capital T truth of oneness and wholeness with the universe, that there's nothing that remains to be healed. Nothing can stand in the face of that deep recognition. We realize the capital T truth by just noticing how much time we spend focusing on the problem instead of the solution. We spend an awful lot of time being hypnotized by our conditions, don't we? I mean, even people who have a strong spiritual practice get hypnotized by their conditions, and they start to think that they have to change the conditions in order to heal whatever's going on. They think they have to change the outer aspects of their life for it to work. And the problem with that is that it doesn't help. It doesn't help. We change the conditions, it doesn't work, right? People win the lottery, and 2 years later they're broke, flat broke, bankrupt. People will get cured of cancer, and they will die of something else a couple of years later. People will find their dream spouse and be miserable, right? Get your dream job and hate it, because the problem is fixing the conditions doesn't help the real issue. And the real issue is that sense of separation and aloneness and hypnotism by misperceiving the destination for the quality of the journey. We can arrive somewhere and we don't stay long. We move on from there. And if we don't pay attention to how we are journeying, then none of it helps. None of it makes us happy or satisfied. None of it heals that deep absence within of a sense of wholeness. It doesn't make us happy either, because it's only recognizing our wholeness that gives us the freedom to live that joy, that happiness, that expansion, that amazing life that we're supposed to live, that we all want to live, that we want to express and dance through. We want to dance down that road of the journey of our lives rather than trudge, right? No trudging, please. But if we give our attention to the problem or the lack or the disease or whatever, we are giving it our power. It won't stay alive unless we keep empowering it. Have you noticed that? If you ignore a problem, I used to have this practice, and it's probably time to, my husband would say it's time to start doing it again, in that I don't comment on something that I feel is a problem until I leave it alone for 24 hours, at least. And usually it's gone within 24 hours, because I'm not giving it any more power. I'm not feeding its life. It's only when we get stuck in looking at the problem that we are empowering it. What we have to do is rise in consciousness, meaning we have to lift up and elevate what we're looking from, because what we see is what we're looking from. And so if we're looking down here at the conditions and how bad they are, that's what we're going to keep seeing. But if we can raise our consciousness up, we can see something different. A lot of times what we see in the beginning is simply the problem, and there's a reason for that. We've talked about it a little bit before. Mystics have known it for a long, long time, and now science is catching up with them, that we have a bias in our the human part of us, the biological part of us. We have a bias for negativity, and it's a result of the structure of our brains. I get these books in the mail all the time. People are always sending me books to read, so I never hardly have to buy any, because I always have a supply of new books coming in. This one is called Just One Thing, Developing a Buddha Brain, One Simple Practice at a Time. It's pretty good. This is what he has to say about the human brain. First of all, he talks about a couple of these negativity bias studies that were done in 2001, and he says that scientists believe the brain has a built-in negativity bias because, as our ancestors, way back ancestors, dodged sticks and chased carrots over millions of years of evolution, the sticks had a greater urgency and impact on survival. The negativity bias shows up in lots of ways. The brain generally reacts more to a negative stimulus. The brain, not the mind, the brain generally reacts more to a negative stimulus than an equally intense positive one. Animals, including us, typically learn faster from pain than from pleasure. Painful experiences are usually more memorable than pleasurable ones. Let me clear something up here. This is not a recommendation that you try and teach yourself through pain or any other animal. If you train a dog with pain, what you have is an angry, frustrated, frightened animal that will turn on you. If you train a dog with cookies, You have a friend for life. One that will obey you and love you and just ask for more of your love. So it's simply that the brain pays more attention to the negative stimulus because of its biology. Doesn't mean it's a good way to learn. This is my favorite. Most people will work harder to avoid losing something they have than they'll work to gain the same thing. Lasting good relationships typically need at least a 5-to-1 ratio of positive to negative interactions, unless you're being aware of it, because the brain pays more attention to the negative than the positive. So our brains are like Velcro for the negative. And they see a circumstance and they grab it and they say, look, this is awful. Look how bad this is. This is terrible. But we're not our brains. Hallelujah. That deserves a hallelujah if I ever heard one. We are not our brains. We also have consciousness. We have the mind. We have will, one of our divine gifts. We got our 5 senses biologically, but we have these other gifts of consciousness, will, and imagination, and memory, and those other things that keep us from getting stuck in the problem. So when we begin to deal with life as it really is, that's where we rise in consciousness. If the world were the way the news tries to convince us it is, we would have died out a long time ago. Because all we ever hear on the news is who killed whom and what war is happening and all that bad stuff. If that were the way the world was, we would have wiped each other out. The world is actually mostly good by a long shot. Mostly good stuff happens. But we've got to be able to look for it. Ernest Holmes said, look for the good and praise it. And that's the key to rising in consciousness, I think. So that means that when you're stuck in judgment, you need to turn away from it and look for something good and praise it. When you're stuck in fear, you have to turn away from the fear and look for something good and praise it. When you think you have to change the conditions, you need to look away from the conditions for something good and praise it. When you're in arrogance, you need to turn away from your own arrogance and look for something good in the situation and praise it. Praise the heck out of it. Praise it, praise it, praise it. That's how we rise in consciousness, is by finding the good things and praising them. Here's a challenge. Try it for 10 days and see what happens to you. Just try it for 10 days. It will amaze you, because what we're doing is the mind will adapt to whatever it's resting on. Don't let it rest on the bad stuff. Find some good stuff to let it rest on. Because if you keep telling the stories about how bad things are, that's what you're seeing from. That's what you're seeing from. Start looking for things you can tell stories, the good stories about. Start looking for the thing in your life. So the flowers are blooming on your way to work and 5 people wave to you. Raise it and praise it. You get up in the morning and your hair is not all crooked. For me, that's a celebration, because that means I could go out to walk my dog without the neighbors going, she just got out of bed, didn't she? Anything I can find to raise and praise, I do. When I do something well, this is really important because we don't do it often enough. When you do something well, even if it's a little tiny thing, raise it and praise it. Give yourself a pat on the back. And it's not egotistical. What you're doing is normalizing your brain. You're normalizing the conditions within you. Because if you want to feel good, you have to speak good. Whether it's in here or out there. If you want to see good, you've got to speak it. If you want to be joyful, you have to speak from that place of joy. There's a thing that scientists call implicit memory. And guess what it is? It's your beliefs, your perceptions, your moods, your feelings, and it's all created by what you say in here and what you say out there. And if we're going to change that, if we're going to live an expansive, joyful life, we have to rise in consciousness. We have to raise our viewpoint so that we're seeing from all that. If you go through your days for the next 10 days, looking for the good and praising it, you're giving yourself, your relationship with yourself, 5 good inputs for every negative one. It'll not only change your relationships, it will change your whole life. It will, because you're giving your brain a new place to rest. And it's a high place. It's a sacred place. It's a holy place. This is the proper use of will in my book. It's what God gave it to us for, is to increase the light that we are. And it may take 5 good interactions to outweigh 1 bad interaction. But you're training your mind, and a trained mind is so powerful. The untrained mind works through the brain, and it goes, look, bad, ooh, scary, look, negative. The trained mind says, what's good here? What can I praise? What can I find here to really shout about? And say, look how cool this is. That's a trained mind, and a trained mind is a power, it's like a laser. And it will create for your life a wonderful place for your mind to rest, and your spirit to rest, and your heart to rest. What we're doing is training our thoughts, and thus creating an experience of a life that's joyful and expansive and happy and free and full. We do that simply by looking for the good and praising it. Praise it, praise it. Look for the good facts and turn them into good experiences. The way you turn it into a good experience is by letting yourself feel good about it. Don't just brush it off. You know how we do, oh yeah, I did that, so what? Stop for a minute. It takes 15 seconds. That's all it takes. 15 seconds to let it fill your mind and your body. Because neurons that fire together wire together. And the brain is always rewiring itself. So don't tell me you're too old. Because until the day we stop breathing, our brain is reforming itself over and over and over again. And so when we are firing those neurons of good, of praise, of pleasure, we're causing our whole brains to become rewired. And they start to work better. They stop looking for the negative all the time, and they start to see the flower instead of the mud. They start to see the beauty in a person instead of something to be jealous about or to judge. They start to see the good in everything around us. How you use your mind changes your brain. Amazing but true. Amazing but true. So start right now. Start right now making sure that your mind is resting on good things instead of on things to worry about. Because we're the place the divine shows up in the world. And I don't know about you, but I want that to be a place of joy and a place of love and a place of lifting up others, not a place of looking down here and staying small. I want it to be a place of light and love and expansiveness. And I can only do that if I raise what I'm looking from to that field of joy and that field of love and that field of happiness. So the way that I'm trying to use my God-given life is by using my God-given will to make myself more expansive and happier and more joyful and more willing to say to someone else, you look fabulous today. And to say to someone else, it's so good to see you. I've missed you. I love you. Because the more we do that, the more light there is in the world. And the more we look for the good and praise it, the more good there is. It's an amazing thing, but that's how it works. It's how it works. So, today we're talking about rising up and looking for the good. We're talking about praising the heck out of it. Just praise it and praise it. You can't stop your brain from changing. You might as well give it a good way to change. You might as well cause it to change in a happy way, in a joyful way, rather than in the old same old way. The choice is completely up to you. You can raise your life or you can erase your life. It's your choice. So I urge you, practice it for 10 days. Choose to see the good and praise it. Choose to see the joy and expand it. Choose to see the light and embrace it. And so let's just together allow ourselves to look inside to that inner sanctuary where there's only light, where there's peace and joy, where there's love, where there is wholeness, the essence of all healing. Wholeness, oneness with all that is. Our connection, our union with the divine being, that spoke into being the entire universe. And everything that transpired from that initial moment forward, including you and including me and including all life, including our beautiful planet, including everything. From this place, I know that each one of us finds it compelling and effortless to see the good in this moment and the next and the next, to see the good, to pay attention to the good, to feel the good within us and around us and in our lives, to praise it with our very being, to praise it from the center of our soul, to raise a great hallelujah for every moment of good that we experience, and to let it penetrate us, body and soul, until it becomes the very ground on which our minds and souls rest. The landscape of God, the landscape of good, the landscape of love. I know that this is true, the truth of who we are, because I know who we are. I know whose we are. I know that we are here to express life itself in all of its joy and glory. And so, I know that each one of us picks up this rise in consciousness and elevates what we look from, so that all we see is good. Because I know this is the truth about each one of us, I give thanks. I give thanks to that first cause, God, Spirit, Father, Mother, infinite being that is in every place and every moment of time, and that lives inside of me and inside everyone I look at. I give thanks for this time together and for this amazing community of love and joy. And from this place of gratitude, I release these words, because it is never any of us that has to do the work. All we have to do is remember that the work is done. I let these words fall into the infinite law of the universe that always says yes. And I simply let it be, knowing it is already so. And we say together, and so it is. I am remembering who I am. I am remembering who I am. I am remembering. I am remembering. I am remembering who I am. I am remembering who I am. I am remembering. I am remembering. I am remembering who I am. I am remembering who I am. And may you never forget it. Now we have an opportunity to give in support of our community, but also to just take a moment to be grateful, to raise and praise all the blessings in our lives, our homes and our families and our friends and our bodies and our minds, and yes, our brains, those funny little brains, and everything else that blesses us in this life. And I ask you that as you gratefully give, or if you're unable to give as the basket passes you, to simply bless this community, to know its abundance. And let's affirm together, gratefully I give with an attitude of abundance. I know that as I give, so do I receive. And so it is. It looks fun. You gotta check the pictures on Facebook. There's some great pictures there. If you would take a look at the back of your bulletin, it will save a lot of grief. See where it says mark your calendar? See all those red words that say deadline? There's lots of deadlines coming up. You can see that there are all sorts of them. Today is the deadline to RSVP for the Cowan Lake weekend. Today is no, that's tomorrow. Tomorrow is the deadline to join the self-mastery class and the deadline to submit articles for our community newsletter. I have to tell you something about that newsletter. I had a cousin here. She lives in Orem, Utah. I haven't seen her in 15 years. She was here this weekend, or this last week, and I had dinner with her, and she said that her sister-in-law found our newsletter at the public library and brought it home and said, "Is this your cousin?" And she said, "Well, yeah, I think it is." So it's working. The word is getting out. So submit an article, submit an ad by the 20th for the community newsletter. It's going out all over the place. And so let's see, what other deadlines? Oh, tomorrow is also the deadline to register for the November retreat for mystics, November 7th, 8th, and 9th. So there's lots of deadlines coming up. Today we begin the 5 pillars of spirituality class. This is our little altar for that class. So you can check off all of those things on the back of the bulletin that you want to get interested in. So for the 5 pillars class, it's also our picnic, so you can go and have lunch and then come back here at 1 o'clock. It'll be perfect. I want to tell you that the September 27th new members class is going to be postponed until November 16th, and the reason is I'm overbooked. And also because I'm trying to get it on a regular twice-a-year schedule, and I think November and May will be perfect. I don't know how all this happened to me, but that weekend just looks like a nightmare, and I thought, what can I do about this? And this is the only thing I can do, so I'm sorry for the postponement, but we will get it onto a twice-a-year schedule. And everyone is welcome, and know that if you're interested but you're not sure you want to be a member, we're not going to strong-arm you. You'll just come and have a good time and learn some skills about being part of a community. And so Becky Victor has a couple of things she'd like to speak to you about.
I just wanted to emphasize, if you are interested in Cowan Lake, Gary's out in the back cooking. Please stop by and see him. We've already got 10 people signed up, and today is the deadline for that. And then there's another thing we've got going, which is the rain barrel that's going to be built. And of course, we have the cost of the materials, and they're made, and then there'll be some money coming back to the center. But it is September 27th, and we'll just connect at 9:30 in the social hall. These are 55-gallon drums, white drums, fully done, fully made. So you just take them up and you hook them up at home, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But they're $70 for those. Typically, they'll run on an average at least $125 to $150 for those. So if you are interested in a rain barrel, please check us out. Let us know today. We'll need a prepayment by September 21st of $70. So thank you.
It's a great thing to be able to recycle some of the water that comes off your roof in your garden and store it until you need it again. Also, in terms of public awareness, tomorrow we will be having a whole bunch of radio spots on WYSO radio during the morning and evening drive times. So tune in to 91.3 and check it out. You can give us your feedback on the little ads that are going to be running during those 2 times of the morning and evening. For 2 weeks. For 2 weeks, yeah. For the next 2 weeks, those spots are going to be running. And so, obviously, we're gonna hope that some people hear them and want to know more. So that'll be good. I think the kids are probably back there nibbling already, so I'm just going to say that if you would like prayer support for anything at all, please see one of our practitioners, our prayer practitioners who have the white or the teal shawls on. They are pleased to give you the gift of prayer after the service. We call it a 1-minute miracle because they're very good at knowing the truth of the situation, the thing you can look from, the thing you can raise in praise when you can't see it. So see one of them right after the service. So let's stand and do our closing affirmation and our closing song, which is I Trust in God, and then lunch. Hey! Yeah, they're not, I don't think they're coming. They must be very busy. So let's know together, there is a song of the universe and I sing it.
There is a song in the universe, and I sing it.
There is a hymn of praise, and I praise it.
There is a hymn of praise, and I praise it.
There is a life of joy, and I live it.
There is a life of joy, and I live it.
And so it is.
So it is.
Have a fabulous week.